He stood there on her porch, fingers tightening around the grip of a Taser, wearing a fake badge and a smirk like he owned the whole block. Monica didn't blink because behind her, three silent figures stepped out from the shadows, calm and ready. That's when he realized he'd picked the wrong house and the storm was already at his back. Hi everyone. Today we're diving into a story that starts with something small, a knock on the door, and ends with a neighborhood transformed. But not before a storm of deception, intimidation, and injustice unfolds. Picture this: you've served your country, retired honorably, and finally moved into the quiet neighborhood you always dreamed of. You plant flowers, wave to the mailman, and hang your flag just the way your father taught you. And then three strangers show up, dressed like they're about to raid a compound, claiming you broke the rules. And one of them has a taser. This could happen to anyone, even you. So before we dive into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? It was 6:43 p.m. when Monica Delaney first heard the knock. It wasn't frantic, it wasn't casual. It was deliberate, measured in a way that made her glance at the front door before she even moved. Her German shepherd Dusty didn't bark. That was the first red flag. Dusty always barked when someone came with attitude, but this time he just stayed still, alert, tail low and stiff. Monica dried her hands on a towel, moved quietly to the door, and looked through the peephole. Three men stood outside: tactical vests, cargo pants, combat boots. One had mirrored sunglasses despite the sun starting to dip. They looked like they were playing SWAT team in a neighborhood built for potlucks and wine tastings. She cracked the door open, keeping the security chain latched. "Evening, ma'am," the tallest one said. He had a buzz cut, a patchy goatee, and the kind of confident grin that tried to mask insecurity. "We're with Alder Lane's Homeowners Enforcement Task Unit. You've got a flag violation." "A what?" Monica asked, not even blinking. "Your flag," he continued, holding up a laminated card that looked like it came out of a desktop printer. "It's not properly displayed. Code 18C, American flag can't be angled under an eave. It's gotta be vertical, fully exposed." Monica didn't even glance back. She knew her flag. Her father taught her how to handle it when she was 10. She'd folded it over too many caskets not to get it right. "Is that a real badge?" she asked. The man stepped forward, slightly flashing the card again. "This is HOA-issued identification. We're authorized to issue citations and coordinate compliance discussions." She leaned forward just a bit. No barcode, no county seal. Just the Alder Lane logo and some grainy text. "Looks like something a high school kid would make for a prank," she said. The second man, shorter, heavy-set chewing gum, like it owed him money, spoke up. "You can come with us down to the HOA office and clear this up. Or we can file a non-compliance report." "The HOA office is in a converted tool shed behind the tennis courts," Monica said flatly. "And I've lived here 7 months. Never heard of an enforcement unit." The third man, silent until now, shifted his stance. Tattoos peeking out from under his collar, muscular, quiet. He unclipped something from his belt, a taser. He didn't raise it, but he made sure she saw it. Monica didn't flinch. Not 1 inch. She stepped back just far enough to unlatch the security chain. Dusty moved beside her, alert but quiet. She stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind her. The mat beneath her feet read, "Come correct or don't come at all." "You're going to bring a taser over a flag complaint?" she asked. The tall one smiled again. "We bring a taser for non-compliance." She raised an eyebrow. "And who authorized that?" He hesitated. "We're supported by the HOA board. Margaret Ellison signed off. You can check the bylaws." Monica gave a slow nod. "You got a printed version of those bylaws?" He didn't answer. That was when the second car door shut. From the house next door. Then another behind a parked SUV. Monica didn't turn, but the men did. 3 women emerged, one from each direction. Calm, steady, not smiling. One leaned on the railing. Another folded her arms across her chest. The third stopped just at the curb. The tall man's jaw clenched. "Who are they?" Monica allowed herself the faintest smile. "Friends," she said. "Old friends." The men shifted uncomfortably, glancing at one another. The third man with the taser tilted his head, hand still hovering near his belt. "You still want to escort me?" Monica asked. The silence between them was thick enough to choke on. Then flashing blue and red lights appeared at the end of the street. A cruiser pulled up slowly, no siren, just presence. Two deputies stepped out, one male, one female. They weren't in a hurry, but they looked like they'd seen enough. Monica turned her head just slightly toward the tall man. "You said your name was Derek Vaughn, right?" He blinked. "Yeah," he said, not so loud this time. "You might want to keep your hands visible, Derek. Real law enforcement's here now." The deputies didn't run, they didn't draw weapons, but the male officer walked directly toward Derek with the kind of certainty that comes from years of reading situations fast. "Sir, I'm going to need to see identification." Derek hesitated. Monica just stood there, arms relaxed, eyes steady. "You see a calm woman and think she's an easy target," she said, almost like she was talking to herself. "But calm doesn't mean weak. It means I've already done the hard part." Derek Vaughn didn't respond. He didn't have to, because by then everyone watching already knew he was in deep. The deputy, a sturdy man with the nameplate G. Morales, stepped in front of Derek Vaughn, voice level, but unmistakably firm. "Sir, put your hands where I can see them. Now." The gum chewer raised his arms immediately. The tattooed one didn't move at first, then slowly let go of the taser hanging from his belt and lifted his hands as well. Derek, still trying to hold on to the illusion of control, fumbled to retrieve his laminated badge from his vest. "We're authorized," he said, his voice losing steam. "We're part of the HOA compliance team." Morales glanced at the card and didn't even pretend to take it seriously. His partner, Deputy Nguyen, had already moved to the side and was snapping a photo of the card with her phone. "Sir," she said, "this doesn't qualify as any legal credential under the California Business and Professions Code. You've got a badge that looks like it came from a summer camp and a weapon strapped to your hip on someone's porch. That's not going to fly." Derek started to object, but his voice faltered when he noticed Monica standing dead, still hands in her pockets, unbothered. Her backup, the three women who had emerged quietly from the shadows, still hadn't said a word. They didn't need to. Morales turned to Monica. "Ma'am, would you be willing to make a statement?" Monica gave a single nod and reached into her back pocket slowly and deliberately. She pulled out her phone and handed it over. "I've got the whole thing recorded, from the moment they knocked." Morales took the phone. "Thank you." Monica looked toward her old teammates. They remained still watching. Derek tried to break the silence. "We weren't trying to hurt anyone. We just want the community to follow the rules." "You threatened a resident with a weapon," Nguyen said coldly, "on her property, with no lawful authority. That's not rule enforcement. That's intimidation." The deputies instructed the three men to wait near the cruiser while they ran checks. Dusty, still standing alert beside Monica, finally sat. Tension lifted just slightly, but not all the way. Once the deputies had the situation under control, Monica stepped back onto her porch, exhaled, and leaned against the doorframe. Her teammate, Lana, was the first to speak. "You good?" "Yeah," Monica said. "Just didn't expect it to happen here." "You ever do," said Sienna, crossing her arms. "You know," Dana added from the fence. "I think that guy thought he was running a one-man militia." Monica almost laughed. Worse. He thought no one would push back. The next morning, Monica uploaded the video to a cloud drive and saved backups. She also emailed it to a civil rights contact she knew from her time assisting with veteran housing rights. She wasn't looking to go viral, she was looking for accountability. But it didn't take long for word to spread. By that afternoon, Monica had 6 emails and 4 hand-delivered notes from neighbors she barely knew, all of them thanking her. One of them, a woman named Renata, who lived 2 doors down, shared something that made Monica's stomach turn. "Last month," the note read, "those same men accused my teenage son of loitering in front of our own garage. He got scared and ran inside. They came back 2 days later and left a printed notice that said we were under compliance review." I didn't know what to do. Thank you. The stories kept coming, some in emails, others in person. A retired school librarian said Vaughn had stood at her doorstep for 10 minutes, demanding to inspect her flower bed for pest violations. A single mother revealed she had been secretly paying $20 a month after one of the men told her she needed extra security patrols because of how many delivery packages were showing up at her address. By day 3, Monica's small dining table was covered in statements, notes, screenshots, and even a few shaky phone videos, one showing Vaughn and his crew circling a block in their golf cart staring at people. All of the targets, minorities. Black, Latino, Asian. Not a single white resident had reported harassment. Sienna organized everything into a spreadsheet. 22 entries, 8 months, 3 men, dozens of violations, and not once had the HOA board stepped in. It's a system, Dana muttered, pointing to a cell in the spreadsheet. They created a system that they funded, Monica added. I saw the line item when I requested the HOA bylaws my first week here. She pulled out a thick packet from her file cabinet, dry legal language wrapped in cheerful clip art, but tucked into section 7.2 was a line that now stood out like a flare in a dark sky. The board reserves the right to authorize voluntary community security oversight groups for the purpose of neighborhood order and decorum. Decorum, Sienna repeated with a bitter laugh. What a word. Monica didn't respond. Her mind was already moving forward. Her hands opened her laptop and began drafting an email. To HOA President Margaret Ellison, subject request for emergency board meeting. Body, I'm requesting an immediate meeting of the HOA board and community residents to address a serious safety and legal issue regarding the actions of Derek Vaughn and his so-called enforcement team. I have video sworn statements and ample documentation of impersonation and harassment. This cannot wait until the next scheduled session. She hit send. No turning back now. Within the hour, a reply arrived. Due to scheduling, we are unable to accommodate an emergency meeting until next month. Thank you for your understanding. Monica rolled her eyes. She sent a second email. This one had the video. The reply came 10 minutes later. The meeting was scheduled for 6 p.m. the following evening in the community center behind the tennis courts. Lana looked over Monica's shoulder and smiled. Guess they watched it. I hope they watched it twice, Monica said. That evening, just as the sun slipped behind the hills, the community center filled, not with board residents or HOA groupies, but with neighbors holding screenshots, shaking heads, and cell phones already set to record. The board sat behind a plastic table, dressed up with a fake wood grain cover, as if aesthetics could hide what had happened. Margaret Ellison pearl necklace tight around her throat cleared her voice like she expected order. But Monica wasn't waiting for permission to speak. She stepped to the front row. No podium, just presence, just her voice. Monica didn't need a microphone. The room quieted as soon as she began to speak. What happened on my porch wasn't just a misunderstanding, she said, eyes scanning the crowd. It was an ambush disguised as enforcement. A threat wrapped in a badge that wasn't real with a weapon that was. No one interrupted. Even the teenagers in the back stopped scrolling their phones. Margaret Ellison straightened in her seat. Ms. Delaney, we appreciate your concern, but no, Monica said calmly. You don't get to minimize it. Not tonight. She pulled a printout from her folder and held it up. A still image from the video, Derek Vaughn on her porch hand, hovering near the taser. This happened because you gave him permission. You gave him a title, a laminated badge, and your silence. Margaret opened her mouth, but a voice from the back cut in. She's right, said a man standing near the exit. They came to my house too. Told me my daughter's bike was unsightly and threatened a fine. Another voice followed. A woman near the middle row. They tried to tell me I couldn't hang wind chimes. Then another. They filmed my kids from the golf cart. Margaret glanced around suddenly, very small behind her folding table. These are volunteers, she said defensively. They were acting with the board's understanding based on neighborhood expectations. Donna, Monica's teammate, stood from her chair in the second row. Expectations don't include impersonating officers carrying weapons or racially targeting residents. We don't condone, Margaret started. You funded them, Sienna said, holding up a photocopied HOA budget. Reflective vests, badge printing, golf cart maintenance. It's all in here. Signed off by you and 2 other board members. The room was still. No one clapped. No one cheered. The silence was its own verdict. I moved here after 17 years of service, Monica said, stepping forward. I've flown medevac into combat zones. I've held wounded soldiers while mortars rained down. And never, not once, did I feel what I felt when 3 armed men stood on my porch pretending they had authority over me. She took a breath. That feeling doesn't belong in this neighborhood. Not on my street. Not on anyone's. Margaret looked to the other board members for support, but they were frozen, pale. One even slid his chair back. Monica raised the final sheet of paper. I've spoken with a civil rights attorney. Her name is Valerie Grant. She's filed a preliminary complaint with the California Department of Consumer Affairs, and a class action suit is being prepared. If the board doesn't suspend all unauthorized enforcement activities and release the names of those involved within 24 hours, legal proceedings will begin. Someone in the back whispered, "Good." Another added, "About time." Margaret's voice cracked as she spoke. "We'll draft a motion tonight." Monica nodded once. "That's a start. But we're not done." The meeting ended not with clapping, but with purpose. Neighbors stayed after, talking, sharing, swapping stories of what they thought were isolated incidents until now. People who had never spoken beyond a wave were now standing together deciding how to fix what had gone wrong. That night, Monica returned home and found Dusty waiting on the porch. She sat beside him in the fading light, one hand resting on his back. Dana brought out 2 cups of mint tea. "You think this will actually change anything?" she asked. Monica looked out at the houses along Alder Lane. Front porches that had once been empty were now scattered with quiet conversations and porch lights left on a little longer than usual. "I think it already has," Monica said. The next morning, the HOA board posted a formal notice the enforcement task force was suspended indefinitely. A full list of participants would be made public pending legal review. No private citizen under the HOA would be allowed to carry a weapon or issue citations moving forward. But the bigger hammer came from Valerie Grant. She met with Monica and her team over lunch at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Her briefcase was packed, her tone sharp. "We've got enough for civil harassment, discrimination, and enabling unauthorized law enforcement behavior," she said. "We're also forwarding the complaint to the state attorney general's office. I've seen this before in pockets in little towns, but never this organized. Never with board-level support." "They knew," Monica said. "Maybe not every detail, but they knew." Valerie nodded. "And that makes them complicit." The following week, state investigators arrived unannounced. They interviewed residents, reviewed HOA emails, and seized digital records. And just like that, the story got bigger. Local news picked it up first. A grainy version of Monica's video was already on social media. The headline read, "Veteran confronts armed HOA patrol in Sonoma suburb." The segment aired on Channel 9's Evening Report. Monica's face was blurred, but her voice wasn't. "You don't need to look intimidating to be a threat," she said in the clip. "You just need a false sense of power and no one telling you no." Valerie sent over a press release 2 days later, confirming the formal suit had been filed. The defendants included Derek Vaughn, his 2 accomplices, Ray Milner, and Travis Coates, and 3 current HOA board members. Derek was arrested again, this time officially, charged with impersonating an officer, unlawful use of a stun gun, and harassment. Ray and Travis took plea deals, probation, community service, and mandatory public apologies at the next town meeting. Margaret Ellison resigned quietly. No statement. Just a stepping down to focus on family note posted to the HOA website. In her place, a special election was held. For the first time in Alder Lane's history, a full slate of candidates ran who weren't just retirees or real estate investors. A school nurse, a local EMT, a father of 3, even Sienna. Monica was asked to run. She declined, but she promised to help. The reforms came fast. All meetings live-streamed and archived. No decisions without a public vote. All resident complaints reviewed by an independent oversight committee. And on a warm Saturday afternoon, Monica walked Dusty past the small park at the edge of the neighborhood. 2 kids on scooters zipped past. An elderly couple smiled and waved from their driveway. Across the street, a young mother who once paid Derek for safety coverage watered her garden unbothered. Sienna caught up to her with a grin. "You realize this neighborhood's actually friendly now?" Monica smirked. "Difference is a start." And it was, because behind every door that opened a little slower before, trust was returning. And Monica Delaney. She wasn't going anywhere. The shift didn't happen overnight. Neighborhoods don't change like that. But over the weeks that followed, something subtle began to move through Alder Lane. You could see it in the way people lingered on their porches a little longer, in how front lawns, once obsessively manicured and quietly competitive, became more relaxed, even a little wild, in how folks started talking to each other, not just out of routine, but out of curiosity and maybe even care. Monica kept a low profile. She walked Dusty twice a day, like clockwork, waved to the neighbors who waved first and stayed out of the spotlight. But behind the scenes, she was helping Valerie Grant and her legal team dig deeper. It turned out Derek Vaughn hadn't just acted on a whim. He had registered a limited liability company with the state under the name SafeWatch Community Services, listing himself as CEO and Ray and Travis as compliance officers. The address tied to the LLC was a P.O. box in nearby Rohnert Park. The business had no contracts, no formal authorization, no insurance, but that didn't stop them from passing out flyers, knocking on doors, and collecting money. They made about $1,200 in donations over 4 months, Valerie explained during one call. Mostly in cash, mostly undocumented. But the pattern is clear. They created a fear-based model, then offered themselves as the solution. That's textbook coercion. More disturbing was what they did with that money. Receipts showed tactical vests, flashlights, cheap earpieces, body cams, and yes, multiple tasers purchased online with no regulation. They were playing dress-up. But the threat was real, and the community had paid the price. Valerie filed a motion to expand the civil suit, now adding financial fraud to the list. The state investigators had already compiled enough to forward the case to the Sonoma County District Attorney. And then came the press. Local turned regional. A feature on KPX San Francisco. Then an interview request from NPR's All Things Considered. Monica turned them all down. Not because she was hiding, but because she didn't want this to be about her. Still, the story had legs. At the next HOA open meeting, now held outside in the park, to accommodate the growing attendance, Valerie took the mic and explained the charges being brought. The crowd was silent as she spoke, not from confusion, but from the weight of understanding what they'd allowed to exist just under their noses. When she stepped down, Monica stood. She didn't speak long. No one should have to be trained to stand up to fear, she said. You shouldn't need a military record or a camera or backup from Special Forces friends to feel safe on your own front porch. Someone in the audience called out, "Say that again." Monica did, and it stuck. From that moment forward, you could feel the new standard taking root. Sienna joined the new board officially that week. She pushed through a motion to audit every community complaint issued over the last 3 years. What they found was damning disproportionate targeting of homes based on race, age, and family size. Decorum violations for music played during backyard cookouts. Warnings for kids' chalk drawings on sidewalks. Notes left on doors citing excessive front porch clutter when the only visible object was a Black Lives Matter sign. It wasn't just rogue behavior, Sienna said. It was organized bias. The HOA released a statement disavowing all prior compliance activity and offered written apologies to every resident who had received a non-regulation citation. But for some words weren't enough. Valerie's civil case gained traction. Depositions were scheduled. Derek Vaughn's attorney requested a plea deal facing mounting charges and public backlash. He had few options left. The plea included a $15,000 restitution fine, 6 months of house arrest, and mandatory participation in a racial bias rehabilitation program. Ray and Travis received similar outcomes: probation, community service, apologies. But perhaps more powerful than the penalties were the conversations that followed. At a small backyard gathering hosted by a woman named Clara, one of the first people Derek had threatened residents met for the first time without a board agenda. They brought folding chairs, iced tea, store-bought cookies, and folding fans to combat the summer heat. Monica stood in the back just watching. A teenage boy approached her. He looked nervous. "You're the one from the video, right?" "I am," she said. "I just wanted to say thanks," he murmured. "After it happened, my mom stopped letting me ride my bike alone. She was scared. Now she's not." Monica nodded. "That matters. You matter." And she meant it. She remembered every moment from that porch, every ounce of calm she had to summon, every calculation she made in a split second to not escalate the threat. Not because she was afraid, but because she knew how fast things could spiral when someone with power, real or fake, feels cornered. In the military, she had dealt with people in actual combat zones, in firefights, in emergencies where one wrong word could end everything. But what she had faced on Alder Lane was something more: insidious fear wrapped in pretense, wrapped in bureaucracy. And that she knew was harder to see, harder to fight, and it's why it had to be exposed. A week later, she got a letter in her mailbox. No name, just a handwritten note on lined paper. I watched it all happen. I didn't know what to do. Thank you for knowing. It stayed folded in her desk drawer right next to the HOA bylaws and her retirement papers. A reminder of what could fester when people look away and what could bloom when someone chooses to see. The next time someone knocked on Monica's door, it wasn't to cite a flag code or threaten a citation. It was a little girl from 2 houses down holding a plastic container. My mom made banana bread, she said. She says thank you. Monica took it with a small smile and said, tell her I said, it's about time. Fall came gently to Sonoma that year. The trees along Alder Lane softened into amber and rust. Porch pumpkins appeared, some with careful carving, others with childlike scrawls in black marker. But what had truly changed wasn't the season, it was the street itself. Gone were the quiet suspicions. Gone were the nervous glances and the subtle silences that used to follow a door knock or a slow-moving golf cart. People were out again. On porches, sidewalks, park benches. They waved more, talked more, trusted more. The HOA had changed too. With Sienna on the board and 2 new members elected from minority households, transparency became a pillar, not a suggestion. Every meeting was recorded and uploaded. Every budget line item posted to a public dashboard. There were new rules about private enforcement. Simply put, it was no longer allowed. No badges, no uniforms, no patrols without law enforcement presence and municipal approval. At the center of it all was Monica Delaney, not in title, not in ceremony, but in presence. She never made speeches unless asked, never posted anything online, never chased headlines. Yet every time someone brought up what happened the night the fake HOA task force got turned away by calm courage and quiet strength, it always came back to Monica. It wasn't just the takedown that changed people's hearts. It was how she did it. With calm, with clarity, with no desire for credit, only the truth. That's why when the new HOA board held their first open community day in the park, people asked her to speak. Again, she said no, but she showed up. And when she stood off to the side, just there for the lemonade, and Dusty's leash tugging her toward the scent of grilled hot dogs, a local reporter recognized her and approached. Miss Delaney, he said, polite. Just one question. She paused. What would you say to someone out there, he continued, who's seeing something wrong in their neighborhood but feels like they're all alone? Monica considered that for a moment, then said, you're never as alone as you think. The reporter blinked. That's it. She nodded. That's it. And walked away. Because the truth was, she wasn't trying to lead a revolution. She was trying to live in peace. But sometimes peace doesn't come unless someone's willing to break the silence. Valerie's lawsuit eventually concluded. The judge ruled in favor of the plaintiffs. Derek Vaughn and his accomplices were ordered to pay restitutions of multiple families. The HOA was fined and forced to complete mandatory ethics training, which the state would monitor for 2 years. But those weren't the headlines Monica cared about. What mattered more was that the kid who once had his skateboard confiscated now rode past her house every afternoon, helmet on, music blasting from his Bluetooth speaker, carefree and alive. That the woman who once paid a fake security fee now led the community safety committee with no golf carts, no tasers, just a clipboard and a smile. That the veteran 2 streets over who'd kept his blinds closed for 3 years now watered his front lawn every morning, waving to every neighbor who passed. And that Dolores, the elderly woman with the shaky legs and flower-covered cane, had invited Monica over for soup twice in the same month. She'd never done that before. Late one evening, as Monica sat on her back patio, legs up on the bench, Dusty curled at her feet, Sienna joined her with 2 mugs of tea. You know what I realized, Sienna said, sipping from hers. Monica raised an eyebrow. That you hate mint tea but drink it anyway. Sienna smirked. That too. But mostly, that none of this would have happened if you hadn't answered the door. Monica looked out into the dark. I think it still would have happened, she said. Just not like this. Sienna nodded. Silence settled over them. But it was the good kind, the quiet that didn't press or pinch. The kind that felt earned. I'm glad you're here, Sienna said finally. So am I, Monica replied. Not for the fight, not for the fire, but for the change. And as the leaves rustled in the soft California wind, and Dusty gave a long sigh that sounded suspiciously like contentment. Monica leaned back in her chair and let the stillness wash over her. This was what she came for. And now finally, after all the noise, all the fear, all the false authority, she could stay. Sometimes we don't choose the moment. It chooses us. Monica Delaney never set out to make headlines, lead a movement, or dismantle a system pretending to protect people. She only wanted peace, a simple life in a quiet town. But when injustice knocked literally on her door, she didn't look away. She didn't lash out. She stood her ground with steady hands and a sharper mind. And that quiet strength changed everything. It's a reminder for all of us. Abuse of power doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it comes dressed in confidence and clipboards. Sometimes it hides behind bylaws and community boards. And too often it counts on our silence to survive. But you don't need to be a veteran. You don't need a perfect record or a perfect plan. You only need to pay attention and speak up. Because when one person stands up with truth, others find the courage to follow. That's how change begins. One knock, one voice, one neighbor who says, "Not here, not today." So if you ever find yourself staring down intimidation, whether it's on your street, in your workplace, or even in your own family, remember Monica's story. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to show up, stand firm, and refuse to look away. Thanks for spending time with me today. If this story moved you, share it, and let others know they're not alone. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong.